Okay, welcome back. Today we're going to talk about how makeFX composes with user-defined objects. So here we've updated our previous code so that instead of taking a tensor x, we pass in an object. And this object is of class foo, and it basically holds a tensor x, and it has a method add. And yeah, so now we make fx this, we pass in an instance of foo, pass in an instance of y, and after we run this, we see that we trace out this graph. And this graph is quite interesting because we don't actually use foo at all, which I found surprising, maybe you find surprising. And so you do see that we trace out the add, but this add, the args of the add is a tensor constant and y1. Now, like going back to the highway analogy, right? Like makeFX, we're just observing the operators that are going through the dispatcher. So from the standpoint of makeFX, we don't really see this whole like foo self.x stuff. We just see that there is an add operator between two tensors. And one of the tensors we know about because it was the input to the function. But the other tensor we actually didn't know about at all. And what happens underneath the scenes when we do makeFX is that when we see one of these tensors that we haven't seen before, we just save that tensor onto the graph module. So we just say, hey, we haven't seen this before. Let's just set it as a tensor constant, and then we're going to use it. And in fact, if you see down here, I printed out both foo.x and the graph module's tensor constant 0. And you can see that these are actually the exact same object. They have the exact same object ID. So yeah, that's kind of how the object, user-defined object works. Now maybe let's take a look quickly at the code to verify our understanding. So here what we're going to do is when we create a node of named tensor constant 0, we're going to breakpoint. And then we can quickly inspect the stack to see how this works. So we breakpoint here, we go all the way up here, and we see that we've intercepted the torch dispatch call. There's these two arguments, kind of x and y. If we go through proxy call and we look at the proxy args, we see that we know one of them is y, but we have this other tensor that we just don't know about. And when we don't know about this, when we don't know about a tensor, what we do is we go through here, we go through here, we go through here, and I believe it's here. Yes, here. What we do is we basically generate a name that we haven't generated before, and then we add it to our graph module. And then we create a node that gets this name from a graph module to get the tensor. And yeah, that's how user-defined objects work. This was very non-intuitive to me when I first looked at it, so hopefully this was interesting. We might take a quick detour to look at Dynamo for a bit, because Dynamo might be interesting, but hopefully you've been enjoying this series so far, and I'll see you in the next one.